Hey, welcome back. This is video number 5 in our series for Python for Beginners. In this video, number 5, we are going to take a look at functions. This is really where it starts to get fun because the first 3 letters of functions is fun. Just kidding. That wasn't cheesy at all, I swear. But really, this is where it starts to get fun, guys, because a function is like a verb. It's an action. It's going to make things actually do stuff, which is, I don't know about you, why I like to program things, because I like to see it do cool stuff, right? And once you get into programming, it won't always be cool stuff because you're probably going to be doing it for someone else, like a boss, and maybe it's not cool, but at least it does stuff. But for now, when you're doing your own programs, make it do cool stuff. It just makes learning way more fun. Not to say I'm going to do anything incredibly fun in this one because I want to keep it super simple, but yeah. So what is a function, guys? Like I just said, a function is a verb, right? It makes your code actually do things. But at a super high level, a function is a block of code that performs a specific task. You can think of it as a mini program within your larger program. Functions help you break down your code into smaller, more manageable pieces. So think of this as like a mini program, like it says there within your larger program, right? And it'll make sense once we start going here. So what I like to do is just get right in and start defining a function. And why did I say define? Because that's how you're going to build one. So DEF is short for define, and then you're going to write the name of your function. So I'm just going to call mine greet. You call yours whatever you want. And then we need to put open and close parentheses and a colon and hit enter. Congratulations, you have built a function that does absolutely nothing. So now we need to tell it to do something. So I like to use print, as you guys know, for demonstrations because it's just easy to see, hey, it did work because we see it printed out the expected text or string into our terminal. So I'm going to say, hello, welcome to our Python tutorial. And we can run this and it'll do absolutely nothing. We get finished with code 0, which is good. That means no errors, but it did not do anything. Why didn't it print that? Well, because all we did was define the function. We didn't actually call the function. So if you want that function to run, you actually have to call it. So let's try that again. Boom, it printed it out that time. So how do you know it printed it out from here and not from there? Well, because I just told you that, but we can also run this a couple times just as like a proof of concept here. We'll do 3, so we should get exactly 3. That was an unnecessary demonstration, but you do see you get 3 because I called it 3 times. So again, this doesn't do anything. This part defines the action or the function. This actually runs the function each time that you call it. So hopefully that makes sense. So you can build all the functions you want. That's all great, but until you call them, they're not going to do anything. So yeah, hopefully you followed along there. You just created your first function and you were able to run your first function. So congratulations. That is a big step in Python programming because now you're like a ninja. You can put things into action and swing the sword around. You can actually do things, which is very cool, which is why I like programming. I like to see things do stuff. And really where I started, guys, where I started to learn Python more than just out of books and classroom was when I got into tinkering with Raspberry Pis and robotics. Oh, I love it. I love to be able to type code and watch like a servo move or a light turn colors or a motor turn frontwards or backwards. That's where it really gets cool for me. I like to see things do stuff. So yeah. All right, anyways, that is a function. And as you see here, there's nothing within those parentheses. Now, a lot of times we're going to have what they call a parameter. So I'm going to create a parameter called name. Now, if I try to call this again just by doing greet, you think we're going to get an error? Let's see. I'm going to clear this out. And of course, we're going to get an error because now this function requires an attribute. So I have to pass it an attribute called name, right? So that name is obviously going to be a string. So I'm going to run that again. That's great. It didn't do anything because I didn't call the name here. So we didn't get an error because we passed it a name, but it said, hey, that's great, but I don't see what to do with your name within that function. So really what I want it to do is say, hello, Damien, or whatever name I pass it, right? And then we'll say, welcome to our Python tutorial. And then I'm going to run that. And it worked, except for it didn't write the name out. Now, this is a string formatting issue, and all you have to do is put an F here, and that's going to be a formatted string. So if you don't have that, it's just a literal string. Everything in here treats it as a string. This is going to look at these brackets specifically in this case and say, oh, you're calling you're calling an attribute here, right? So I need to plug in whatever he passes for this into here. And that's because we use the F for the formatted string there, guys. All right, so now let's try it again. Let's clear this out and run it again. There we go. So now it says, hello, Damien. Welcome to our Python tutorial. So if I change this to Mark and run it again, boom. There you go. You could do more than one parameter here, guys. You could say, let's just call this weeks. And then I can say, I see you signed up for, then we'll say, weeks of training. And then maybe here we'll pass it Mark and 6. And then we'll run it. Hello, Mark. Welcome to our Python tutorial. I see you signed up for 6. 6 of training. So we actually need to type the word weeks for it to make sense, right? So let's try it one more time. Hello, Mark. Welcome to our Python tutorial. I see you signed up for 6 weeks of training. So again, you could have multiple parameters here, and these could be, I'm using it for an example, I'm using a string and I'm using an integer, right? But these could literally be objects, dictionaries, all kinds of stuff you could plug into here. So this is where it starts to get very powerful, is when you use parameters within your functions. And then once we start building out an application, these inputs a lot of times will be dynamic. So depending on what happens within a different function or an output from something that you're running, maybe a loop, you'll plug that into here as a variable, and then your function will take over and run it. So not to get too far into the weeds, but just know that you are now a Python badass because I'm just kidding. But you are one step closer to being a Python badass now that you know how to build a function and you understand what parameters do within a function. And you even learned about formatted strings here. So if we take this out, it's going to treat this as a literal string and it's going to print exactly what we have in there. But if we use an F, that'll kind of format that string and it'll pull out the different, in this case, parameters within there. And then that lets the function know when we run it, hey, you need to call these out and not just print whatever it says in here, but the corresponding parameters that are being passed to it. That's it, guys. That is the video number 5. So today we learned what a function is, and we learned how to build a basic function. We learned that defining the function is all, that's all great, but it doesn't do anything until we actually call the function. And then we learned about parameters. So we learned what a parameter is, and we learned how to pass a parameter into a function. Awesome. All right, guys, stick around for video number 6. I should have that up soon, and you guys are all one step closer to being Python ninjas. Have a great day, guys, and until the next video, take care.